Welcome to this week's Powerback episode. Today, we are talking about resistance. Oh, I tell you, anytime I talk about resistance on TikTok, people lose their fucking minds because it's like this little seed that I plant in your brain that grows and gets bigger. And then before you know it, you're like, holy shitballs, this is so true. But what I love about that is knowledge is power. And when you can become aware of your mind, when you can become aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and what's actually going on behind the scenes, that's where you get to start taking your power back, my friends. That's why we have these episodes so that you can relearn who you are, what you want, what's going on, and how to actually get it in a way that works best for you. The thing about resistance is it tells you what's important to you. And I know that seems counterproductive, but I'm going to go through that a little bit more in this episode. It also shows you what may need to be and is ready to be released, and is honestly one of your greatest opportunities for growth and expansion, both in your life and in your business. And if you're searching for peace in your heart and in your soul, if you're looking for freedom and flexibility, if you're looking for happiness and joy, recognizing your resistance is going to be a fucking game changer for you. So today we're going to talk about how you can start to recognize where you have resistance, and then a very simple method. You know, I love to keep it simple on how to move through it. Before we get into the resistance rabbit hole, I want to remind you that Realign is still open and available for registration. So if you're not familiar, Realign is my upcoming 6-week group coaching program. We're going to walk through realigning with your mind, your business, your goals, and get a clear fucking plan so you know what to do next. Think of it kind of like a little mini business reset, a chance for you to work on the business, get reconnected with the business, reconnected with your why so that you have that spark again in you, so that you have the clarity again. And again, so you know what the hell to do next. One of the biggest issues that I see with women in business is the plan is fuzzy, right? You kind of, you know what you want, you know what you're capable of, but how do I actually get here? This Realign program is going to help you get regrounded, reconnected back into your why, so we can answer some of those questions. If you are interested in joining, go to LauraAura.com/realign, or the link is directly in the show notes here. If there are spaces available left, we start April 18th. They will be available on that site. And if they are not, you can sign up for the waiting list. I am certain, positive, and 100% that we will do this again. All right, my friends, let's get into resistance. This is going to be one of those episodes where you're like, damn it, Laura. Like one of my coaching clients, I love her to death. She periodically will message me on Voxer and be like, today I kind of wanted to punch you. And I'm like, okay, tell me more about that. Today, I kind of hated you for a second and now I love you and we've come full circle. And I'm like, you know what? I can appreciate that. So this episode is probably going to be one of those things. You're going to be like sitting on your porch, drinking a drink, and you're going to be like, fuck, damn it, Laura. And you know what? That's okay. I'm here for it. So let's talk about what resistance actually is in the first place. Well, resistance by nature is kind of pushing away from something. It's like going the opposite direction of where you want to go, avoiding something, pushing back. Like there's an avoidance that happens with resistance. Have you ever tried to put a toddler in a fucking car seat, by the way? Somehow they become superhuman with the legs of steel. Like to try and bend them is like trying to bend a 2x4. They are resisting the fuck out of getting into that car seat. And that's a really good example to show, like, visually, this is what's happening. And it's mental, though. It's not always physical, while sometimes yes, but most of the resistance that's happening is happening in your mind. And so your mind is trying to be like, hey, let's kind of bend to this. Let's move with this. Let's create flow with this. And your mind is like, no, I'm a toddler. I'm pushing back against it. I'm not doing it. Get out of here. So resistance might look like avoiding stuff, unintentional self-sabotage, procrastination. Ooh. Have you ever heard the saying that procrastination is like masturbation? You're only screwing yourself? Well, if you haven't, there you go. You're welcome. It's a saying that I can't unhear. I don't even know where I heard it for the first time, but it's so true. And it's not the type of masturbation that you actually kind of really want, because that's good shit. This is the kind where we're pushing back against it. Resistance is like saying, there is something that I want and I desire, but I am going to turn around and walk away from it. And you might be saying, okay, Laura, why in the hell do we do that in the first place? Why are we resisting things? Like, if I actually want something, why am I resisting it? So this is the saying that I say on TikTok. You've probably heard me say it here a handful of times. The thing that you want the most is often behind the thing that you resist the most. I'm going to let you settle into that for a second. I'll say it one more time. The thing that you want the most is often behind the thing that you resist the most. And this is where like the kind of mind fuckery comes into play, because we're saying, okay, if I want something, why would I push it away? Well, there's probably a handful of different reasons, and some of these might ring true for you and you may have your own, but some reasons why you might be resisting the thing in the first place is because it requires you to get out of your comfort zone. Even though what you currently have or the way that you're currently doing something may not be what you want in this season, you've kind of mastered it. You know how to dodge it, you know how to pivot it, you know how to handle it. It's like second nature to you. And so even though it's not really what you want, it seemingly is easy because you've already mastered how to do it. And so a lot of the resistance comes from change, from getting out of your comfort zone, from getting vulnerable, from actually getting true with yourself and speaking up and asking for what you want. It might require you to try something new or change a routine. You know, look, we are creatures of habit. And when you've got the same routine day in, day out, breaking out of that can be really challenging. So this is where the antidote starts to come in, because to get what you actually want requires you to get temporarily uncomfortable. And I want to emphasize temporarily, because we look at the things that we want, where you want to be in your business, a certain goal that you have, a certain lifestyle that you want to live. You want to achieve those things, right? You might be vision boarding about them. You might be journaling about them. You might be daydreaming about them. And to get those things, they're not just going to fall into your lap, right? Like, that would be fucking fantastic. But the reality is you need to do something and align with something and able to receive it. And that something, I'm going to bet, is maybe different than what your current habit, situation, or routine is accounting for. And so if you start to recognize, I'm huge on recognizing. If you start to recognize where you don't want to get uncomfortable, that can start to feed you a whole lot of information where you may have opportunity for growth. Because when you are aware of that, that gives you knowledge. And the knowledge gives you the power to choose differently. I think it's really helpful to walk through some examples, because sometimes this concept is like, Laura, I'm kind of hearing you, but I'm not wrapping my head around it. And so here's a couple of examples of how resistance is maybe showing up in your life. Perhaps you are hungry to learn something new. Maybe there's a class that you want to take, a book that you want to read, a webinar you want to take, a 6-week course, perhaps, that you want to sign up for. Shameless plug there. You have a hunger to learn, but you keep procrastinating on signing up, on registering, on making the deposit. So you want to learn, but you're resisting learning, usually by procrastination or, saying, oh, I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. We all know how that works out, right? Like, later comes and goes and a whole nother day is here. One of the most powerful things here is to give yourself the opportunity to start unpacking it. So if you build awareness around your resistance, around your hesitation, then you can start to like dig into that a little bit deeper to get to know yourself. So where is that actually coming from? Because it's a root. This is underground. This is subconscious stuff. This is conditioning from the past or from other people's thoughts, feelings, or expectations of you. And so an example, again, that may not apply to you, but just to help you grasp this concept. I want to learn, but I'm procrastinating registering for the class. Well, what does that actually mean to me? What am I making that mean about myself? Well, if I learn something, then there's an expectation that I need to do something with it. If I go back to school or if I take a class, that's taking time away from my family. If I take time away from my family, then I'm not being present. If I'm not being present, then I'm not being a good mother or spouse. If I'm not being a good mother or spouse, that means that I am a terrible person. So I am equating learning to being a terrible person. You can see how that resistance would be like, fuck you very much. We will not be learning because that is scary. It is unknown, and I don't want to feel like that. Another example using that same scenario is I am procrastinating and resisting learning. Why am I doing that? Well, if I go back to this class, I don't have a lot of information. So I'm afraid that I will be embarrassed. If I'm embarrassed, that means I'm going to look stupid. So therefore, I equate learning to being stupid. Again, you can see how there could be 1,000 different scenarios for one specific moment or decision or choice in your life. Here's another example. You want more free time in your life, white space in the calendar, time to just like leisurely do things that you want to do, to have time to do arts and crafts, to take a walk, to sip a cup of tea and read a book on your back porch. Like you just want time to be able to just be a human and not have something to do. You resist that by hacking your calendar, by saying yes to things that you actually want to say no to agreeing to go to somebody's house or party or event when you really just don't want to, by taking on one extra meeting tomorrow because you know the space is there, even though your mind and your body is like, "Ah, that's going to be way too much." You're like, yep, I absolutely have space for you. So you end up resisting the free time by packing your freaking calendar. Another example is maybe you want to make more money in your business. Maybe that's a goal and a priority this year, as it is for many people. But you resist even looking at the numbers of where you currently are today. Where are we starting? How can I empower myself today? No, if I just don't look at it, out of sight equals out of mind, and I don't need to know the truth. Perhaps you want to better your relationships with your clients, with your spouse, with your children, with your friends, but you resist having that tough conversation. You know, that conversation where you're like, oh, really have something to express. And I would really love to talk to this person about this, but that feels scary. So I will resist it. Or maybe you just really want to grow and expand your business this year, but you are avoiding and resisting being seen and heard like your life fucking depends on it. Look, I could give you 7,000 other examples, but I just want you to have enough knowledge under your belt so you can start to recognize these things within your own lives, within your own business, within your own day-to-day decisions. Because resistance is tricky. It's this tiny little unspoken thing where you're just like, I know what I want, but it feels more comfortable and easier to keep doing what I've been doing. So, how do we shift this? How do you start to move through the resistance? How do you begin to take your power back? Well, first is getting really gutsy with yourself, honest with yourself, and acknowledging what it is that you actually want. I'm going to use the example of time because I think that that's something that we can all relate to help kind of guide us through this next portion of the exercise. So when you acknowledge the thing that you actually want, in this case is I want more free time. I would like more white space in my life. You can start to use that as your foundation for the decisions that you are making. One of the biggest challenges is if I'm not even acknowledging and owning what it is that I truly want, then how can I make decisions that better support it? How can I effectively dedicate my time, my money, my effort, my energy? How can I focus those things on getting what I want if I'm not even willing to acknowledge what it is that I want in the first place? So, for this example, we're using time. I want more white space and downtime in my life. Now that we have that foundational decision internally, you can start to then make decisions based on, does this support my want or is this feeding into my fear? And what might the fear be with downtime? Perhaps you equate downtime and white space with being unproductive. When I'm unproductive, I'm not making money. When I'm not making money, I'm not getting ahead and everything is falling apart. There's some reprogramming and some reframing here when you can start to get down to the root. And we talked about that a few minutes ago, is start to then recognize what is the thing that is keeping you from having that. In this case, it's scarcity. Having downtime means that I'm going to lose everything. So start to unfold and unpack some of that. What is the thing that you're resisting? What is it that you actually want? And what is the fear that's causing you to resist it in the first place? It's a little game you can play with yourself, like, and then what? So if I have a bunch of downtime, then I'm going to be bored. And then what? Well, when I'm bored, I'm going to start thinking about things. And then what? Well, I'll realize that I'm not working and that might be putting me behind. And then what? Well, when I'm not working really hard, then I am losing out on things. And then what? If I am losing things, that means it's all falling apart. And then what? You can see, you can go down a deep hole with this. And I know that that can feel really uncomfortable, a little scary, vulnerable. This isn't something that you need to share with somebody unless you have a trusted source that you want to go to, but this is for your own knowledge. Because when you can get to the core of the why are we resisting this thing in the first place, then you can start to reframe that. Because what is actually true in this case? Does white space, does downtime actually mean that you are going to lose everything that you have built? Or does it actually mean that you are going to be a healthier, happier version of yourself? That you have time to create and get new ideas because there's time and capacity for those things to come in? That you're going to be more relaxed and more joyful because you've done some things that filled your tank outside of running a business, outside of being a parent, outside of your responsibilities. What if you started to reframe that having white space actually benefited your life? That having white space helped you achieve all of your other goals because you had the mental and physical capacity to start to receive them. The last portion of this exercise is to then recognize when you start feeling pulled into the opposite of what you actually want. These are in the moment things, my friends. Like in the moment when you're like, oh, I really want more white space in my life. I know this about myself. And so asked me to come to this event and I could, but you know what? I'm just really not feeling like it. And I was holding that space sacred for tonight. I was holding that space to watch a movie with my family, to take a walk around my neighborhood, to plant my garden, to map out my new services, whatever it is that you want to do that fills or doesn't fill your own white space. That's important to me. And so I'm going to say no to this opportunity. I'm going to give myself permission to say, no, thank you. And that is the moment where you have taken your fucking power back. Because now that you know what it is that you actually want, you understand the root of where it comes from, and you can recognize when that shit tries to swipe you from underneath your feet. You get to make that decision because you have built that foundation within yourself. Your resistance is one of your greatest opportunities for growth, and whatever growth means for you, because it is deeply trying to tell you something, to show you something, and to release something that is no longer serving you. It is giving you the chance to recognize something within yourself, shift it, and fall madly in love with a new way of thinking, feeling, and being. Your resistance doesn't have to stop you anymore. In fact, the relief, the joy, the excitement, the peace, the clarity, what you're looking for, it's on the other side of giving yourself permission to do the things that you actually want to do. So I'll leave you with this today, a reminder that the thing that you want the most is often behind the thing that you resist the most. So what are you going to stop resisting today? And what are you going to start allowing? Oh, man, I can throw down about some resistance. Look, the next episode of the Gutsy Podcast, number 156, airs next Tuesday and is about pursuing your dreams even when it feels impossible. I know that you have big ambitions, you've got a big picture, a big goal, and you're working towards it, but maybe sometimes that big goal feels too heavy. Next week's episode is such a beautiful, rich episode to help walk you through and guide you how to reclaim yourself so that you can start to achieve all of those amazing things. In the meantime, you can connect with me. I play the most on TikTok and Instagram. You can find me using @thatLauraAura. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.